All right, boys. I have, starting from the beginning, I have not hooked up to my ride command yet. I wanted to show this full to completion here. So we are starting with the normal Indian ride command on one of my many home screens that I have set up with various widgets that I like. You can see that it's currently yelling at me because I have my Ottocast hooked up in this cubby, which you can see I've got stuck using power grab to the top, which it now just fell because I bumped it, but that's what I normally do, just stick it up there. Now I'm ruining everything. Hold on. So that's usually just stuck up in there. And so what I need to do to start this is I need to pair my Cardo, because with the Indian ride command, and actually with literally any infotainment system, you have to have a microphone hooked up in order to use Android Auto or Apple Play, CarPlay. That's just the way it is. It wants to have a microphone for you to be able to do voice commands and take phone calls, so it will not allow you to pair unless you have a microphone. So we need to fix that. Now, if you are not the type of person that wants to have phone calls in your helmet, I don't know why you wouldn't, but if you don't want to have phone calls in your helmet or be able to use voice commands, then the fix for this is to like pair anything, like literally like Apple EarPods or like any cheapo set of headphones. You just have to have something paired to it that it thinks it can use as a microphone. You can also, like a lot of people use like car phones or any like Bluetooth dongle to do like talking in cars, or any hands-free dongle. You could just hook it up and throw it in your saddlebag. It doesn't matter. So really, even like a $20 set of Bluetooth headphones works for this. To start, so as soon as I fire up my Cardo, that's going to bring up the Android Auto screen coming from the Ottocast. I haven't done that yet because I wanted to show some of the functions of the Indian stuff, and it's a lot easier to do that without Android Auto running. The main thing that I feel like a lot of people don't realize, when you buy this thing, if nobody's gone over it for you, just some of the basic things. You've got these different ride command screens that you could switch through using the little finger triggers up here. I think a lot of people don't realize, at least at first, that these are all changeable widgets. If you hit this little gear in the corner, you could actually change what you have on these screens, and you could put engine temp. The thing that gets a lot of people is that the home link widget shows up by default. You see that one right there? That doesn't do a single thing unless you have the module that goes in here. You actually lift this up, and there's a little module that sticks in under there. If that's plugged in, then that button works. If not, then that is just an empty button that is defaulted on your home screen to make you think you have a $150 dongle that you don't have. So just a little pro tip there: when you first get it, that should be probably the first widget you remove, unless you plan on buying that thing, which most of us just put our clicker in the cubby, and it's a lot cheaper than $150. But I really like these widgets, and one of the ones that if you're going to use the Ottocast, you really want to throw one of the Apple CarPlay widgets on one of the screens, just because it's a really easy way to get back to the page you were just on Ottocast. One of the really, honestly, again, a lot of people complain about Ride Command. I do agree that Ride Command is buggy and could be a lot better, but I also feel like that it's really ambitious what they're trying to do on a motorcycle, because really a lot of companies don't do this. Even Harley, they had stereos on bikes for a long time, but they were dumb stereos. They weren't infotainment. It didn't give you any information about the bike. It just would play music and do nav. To tie it into the bike's settings and give you, sensor information and stuff like that, Harley is just now starting to do that. And they have a lot more bikes to iterate on. They've had a lot longer to be dialing these systems in. Indian literally just started this system in 2017. They have really actually been continually working on it the entire time. There's constant updates. So I mean, I know that it does mess up and cause issues, and believe me, I've fought with it before. Holy shit, that's a Rocket 3. I drive by this place all the time. I wonder who that is. I can't imagine I don't know them. Huh. There's only so many Rocket Bros in the world, especially in Florida. So it would be very weird if I had never met that guy before. Huh, I wonder who that is. Anywho, I actually feel like I've seen that bike parked at the Oasis before. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I really feel like the Ride Command, for what it is and what it does and for how long they've been making it, I think it's really impressive. And I think it's only going to get better. Again, as a techie guy, I think I have maybe a bit of more tolerance for bugs, I should say. But when it works great. I really like having tire pressure monitors right there up front and center. Voltage is another gauge that is super duper nice to have. And the infamous trip counter. Now, one thing on this trip counter that, again, worth mentioning, pro tip for the folks that just bought an Indian and looked this video up, because hey, look, I just crossed my 15,000th mile. Look at that. Me and my Challenger together for 14,100 miles now. But this trip meter is super cool, but it does have some key flaws, and I actually have spoken to Indian about it to try to figure out why it changed the way it acts, and they've made a very weird decision that I feel like there's got to be more to the story that we just haven't heard. But this trip meter is basically like your main home screen on the Indian Ride Command system. It's very cool. It tracks how long the bike has been on. It tracks the distance you've ridden. It tracks how much you've moved in that time, how much you've stopped in that time, and how much elevation you've changed in that time. Very, very cool. When I did my trip last year, my 2,000-mile trip, it was awesome because it actually tracked the entire trip. So I was able, over the course of a week to record, a almost 2,200-mile trip and have it give me all those stats every day. I really liked it. I took a picture of it every night. At the end, I had a picture of the entire trip on the screen, all the elevation changes. Very, very cool. Then I got home. They released an update for Android Auto, for the Ride Command. I updated the Ride Command, and suddenly this no longer tracked over the course of several days. Every time I shut the bike off and left it overnight, I'd come back and this meter would be brand new. And I was like, I figured that must have been a setting I changed, something I fucked up, or whatever. When I updated it, wiped it out, and I would just need to figure out how to turn overall tracking back on. And nope, dug through all the settings, looked through everything, could never get that behavior back. It would always just make a new ride every time I rode, which is still cool. But like, people do multi-state trips and they want to be able to, or multi-day trips, and they want to be able to like keep it all together, right? So I contacted Polaris and I was like, hey, what am I missing? How do I fix this? And they actually came back and said, nope, that's the way it's supposed to work. That's the way it was always supposed to work. There used to be a bug in it that made it not wipe itself after 4 hours, and we fixed it. So now if the bike sits for more than 4 hours, the ECM shuts off, it loses the ride data, and it goes away. Now, that's dumb as fuck to me. And I actually suspect that the truth is that they were having like a parasitic power draw, like if the stereo stayed on, holding that info in memory must have took in a couple of volts off the old battery there that they just didn't want to give to it anymore. I don't know. I know these bikes had a big problem with parasitic battery draw, and then they did a bunch of updates to the firmware to try to mitigate that. I suspect that clearing that memory after 4 hours was one of them, because the Ride Command app does the same thing. If you have the Ride Command app If you open up the app within 4 hours of shutting your bike off, it has where your bike is. You know, the GPS tracking is all up. It'll show you what all the gauges last read, all the information in the bike. After 4 hours, that stops showing up, and I feel like the bike is like on and the ECM is communicating for those 4 hours, and then when the bike shuts off, you know, it loses all that. So pro tip, if you have if you're doing a multi-state trip and you want to keep it all up on this screen, you have to walk out and turn your bike on every 4 hours or you'll lose it. Very stupid. Again, I still like it. I still think it's worthwhile to have just for a day's ride, but I don't know why you wouldn't at least give us the possibility of holding that, you know. Even like have the bike, it's got a modem, have the bike upload it to the cloud and re-download it when it turns back on if you don't want to store it in memory. I don't know. And I mean, clearly there is memory this thing has that stays all the time. You know, it has some sort of flash memory on it. I don't know why you wouldn't just commit that to flash memory and then pull it back up. It's got to be a very small amount of data. I don't know. I mean, that's just my theory. It makes no sense to me that somebody that designed a ride tracking system would actually think that people wanted it to clear every time and wouldn't want a way to keep it. Very, very bizarre. But again, I do like it. I like the way it all works. I like the modem. I like the fact that it you know, is very verbose and that you could set it up. And honestly, I even like the Indian nav is honestly not that bad. It updates pretty frequently, and the thing that I really like about the Indian nav, I mean, I never use it for navigation, but I'll show you what I use it for, is that Indian has weather overlays. Oops, that's the wrong button. So you could actually turn on weather and turn on, oh, sorry, that's what I get for looking at the road instead of the screen. What am I doing? All right. So yeah, it actually has weather overlays. I've found the best way to get them to work is to turn on, and you have to turn on the layer every time. I don't know why, but again, when you reset the bike, it shuts that off. You have to open it back up and turn it back on. But I found if you zoom out to 2 miles, I actually don't think there's any weather up to show right now. Maybe if I am feeling very froggy later, if it looks like it's going to rain, I'll try to pop it back up and shoot some footage to edit back into here. But yeah, you know, it does show, you can see the traffic overlays, which again, Google gives me that, but I've never had a nav program actually mix in weather before. And if you're a motorcycle rider, I mean, that's a huge boon to have the weather on your nav, you know, because I've actually used that on trips to like actively avoid rain. So yeah, I think it's a very cool feature to have, even if you're not going to use it for navigation. And that brings me to the Android Auto. So the other thing that's really cool is that how easy it is to switch between Android Auto and the Rod Command. And I made a video showing my Ottocast in more detail, but I guess in that video I didn't really show the connection procedures very well, because I still get asked that question constantly. So that's why I'm making another video to show just a few little Ride Command tips and tricks, and then also how you pair it, because I wanted to show that like this is something that's simple enough that I can do going down the road. In fact, this would have normally happened on its own when I started the bike, but I purposely didn't turn my Cardo on to prevent it from happening. So what you do, you got to turn your Cardo on.
Hello, Pet Talk Mode, DMC, Intercom, Mode, Mobile Phone 2, connected, Mobile Phone 1, connected.
So that automatically connected right there to both my Ride Command and my phone. I actually have the Ride Command selected as Mobile Phone 2, so when I set up the Cardo has 2 pair slots. I pair my phone to slot 1, I pair the bike to slot 2. That prevents any kind of conflict where it's like switching back and forth between the two. And that'll bring up this screen here. This is your Ottocast's pair screen. Now, depending on your phone and the last time it was paired, it may just auto connect, but if it doesn't, you just tap on your phone here. And if it was the first time that I'd ever paired these devices, I would have to go into my phone and you know, find the Ottocast. Usually it's labeled like Indian something or other because it's plugged into an Indian. And you know, you pair it the way you would pair anything, like a headphone set or whatever. You know, you just go new devices and find it and click on it, essentially. And if all goes well, you know, your phone should just launch Android Auto. See, now that it didn't happen there. There's a few reasons that could happen, and there's some troubleshooting you can do. Most likely, that will happen because my phone was still connected to some type of Wi-Fi or still had some kind of other Bluetooth connection going on. Really, before you do anything, you know, like flip out and say this thing's junk and it's not working, the first thing you should do is just hit retry. Just see if it works. A lot of times this will fix your issue. You know, just belligerently hitting retry most of the time will work. If it doesn't, then, oh, there it goes. It worked. My next step, if that didn't work, would have been to reach in there. There's a button on the front of the Ottocast. I would have just reached in there and held that button down for 2 or 3 seconds. And usually that'll reset the box. If that doesn't work, you can try unplugging the box and plugging it back in. And if that doesn't work, then you probably ought to either restart your phone or like turn your phone Bluetooth off and then turn it back on again. A lot of times that will fix it. But I just kind of wanted to show like a real world example of like how I'm able, you know, how easy it is to turn that on. And then like say this is on, but now I want to check my weather overlay, or I want to, you know, make sure that sound I heard earlier when I ran over what looked like a screw in the road actually didn't pop my tire, and I want to check my tire pressures, or, you know, whatever the reason is. Say I want to go back to the Indian stuff. That's easy. So you've got these 4 buttons on the bottom of the Indian overlay, or the ride command, which I always call this the road button. I don't know if it's supposed to be the home button, but road, map, phone, and music. So road and phone are basically what you should think of as the mode switch buttons. So if I hit road, I go back to the Indian stuff. Now if I'm in Indian mode and I hit music, I'm going to go to the Indian music screen. If I hit Indian mode and I hit nav, I'm going to go to the nav screen. And then obviously from here, my map overlays are still working, all of that. You know, all the hand controls over here all still work, whatever. But if I hit phone, that's going to take me back to Android Auto, and then any of the buttons are going to take me to the Android Auto, you know. Nav is going to take me to whatever the last nav I have open. For me, it was Waze. And then music will take me to YouTube Music. And then because Android Auto just updated, you can hit that little button in the corner to get your split screen back. But that's what I really like, the fact that they have made it to where you could seamlessly switch between the 2 modes, and the buttons even work when you're in other modes. And you could do that super fast. You could also hit the gear button to bring down say you know, I'm listening to Android Auto and I'm riding down the road, and Street Glide pulls up next to me and revs its motor, and you know, I'm gonna want to show him why you wasted 10 grand. You know, you could hit that gear button, bring down that drop down, switch to sport mode, turn your traction control off, and Bob's your uncle, you're embarrassing the guy. And so now you can see there is a little hitch to that plan. Sometimes hitting that gear button will knock out your Android Auto. I don't know why that is, but that is a little bit of a side thing. But you know, if you hit your Apple CarPlay button, it should come all right back. Again, if that ever happens, you usually can get back connected just by hitting that's also why I recommend putting one of those Android Auto widgets up on your screen, because that's a real easy way to get back to that Android Auto's pair screen. But you can see how like seamlessly I can move between this stuff. Like even if in the event that I hit something that like messes the Android Auto up, I can reconnect it while going down the road with like very minimal distraction. And that's you know, I kind of just wanted to demo how this stuff works in real time, because I feel like, again, if you're not like super technically inclined, this might not like be immediately super obvious to you. So yeah, just thought I'd, you know, watching him, following too close to this New Yorker in a Silverado. R.I.P. Raccoon. But yeah, I just thought I'd show, like, how this stuff works in the real world, and how easy it is to move back and forth, and how nice it is once you have it. I really like having Waze. I really like having YouTube Music. You could pair your phone to the Bluetooth and play that way, but then you're kind of just stuck with whatever app you had the music loaded up into, right? Unless you have your phone on your bars, you're not going to be able to go back in and choose. Whereas with Android Auto, not only can I switch between different music apps and even podcast apps, but I can also, go through playlists. I can easily select a different playlist. It's a lot easier. The same thing like with Waze and Google Maps. Like you have the options to switch between your nav and set up new nav and choose different routes and stuff. It's all right there on the screen. To me, that is just such a nice thing to have, and Android Auto just is such a nice complement to it basically is better than any infotainment could ever try to be, because it's your phone, it's all your stuff right there. So whether you have to use an adapter to achieve that or not, it's fine as long as you have that. I'm considering that a winner. I do hope that one day Android Auto does come natively to Indian, and by all means I will make a shite ton of videos about how to use that when it actually comes out. We'll see one day. But the other question that I get asked a lot about Ride Command. So when you first pair your headset to Ride Command, it's possible it could do this to you, so it's worth noting. And just also too, I like to use it as a feature, so you can actually play through your Ride Command through your headphones. So you can if you've paired a Cardo or even like a regular old set of headphones, and you instead of blasting the audio, like I do this all the time for podcasts, because like if I'm listening to something like my favorite one of my favorite podcasts, Time Suck, or Last Podcast on the Left, and they're talking about serial killers, like I don't want to just like blast that into traffic, right? So you can actually maintain control of the audio while putting it through headphones, and the way you do that is you go to the Indian Music app. So the easiest way for me to get there with Android Auto up would be to hit the Road button and then hit the Music button. See this little button in the corner there? It's got a speaker on one side, headset on the other. If I switch that, then anything I play through the stereo is now going to come through my headphones, and I can show you that because I have my GoPro wired to where anything that comes through the Cardo actually plays through, gets recorded by the GoPro. So now that I've done that switch, I can go back to Android Auto mode, and if I put a little Tech 9 on for a sec, you can see that's playing through my speaker, not through the headset. And actually, to do it a little even a little more realistic, here's Pocket Casts. So you want to hear a little Time Suck through my headphones, I can do that. And
in the end, the FBI would lead the investigation with local law enforcement and ATF assisting.
Thanks, Dan Cummins. So, yeah, I mean, I just wanted to show, and of course, if I wanted to switch that back off and enjoy some music, I just go right, Indian Music. Ooh, Indian. And also, you can do it this way. If it's not going to work that way, you can, do that way. And now I'm back on my speakers. And I can listen to more Pocket Casts, or I can jam out to some music. But yeah, so that's just a little bit of a real world tutorial on how the Ride Command works as you're going down the road, and some of the stuff you can do with it. If you have any questions, as per usual, I am always cool with a comment or even a direct message with just some clarification or questions. I like to help fellow members of the tribe, use their the large amount of tech on these bikes to the best of their advantage. And I know this doesn't come as easily to some people as it does to me, so no problem sharing the love, man. So again, hit me up if you got any questions or want to know how it works or any suggestions. hit the subscribe button. I am almost we're creeping up on 300 subs here. I've had a few videos get several thousand views. I thank you all for the love and attention. And again, you know, man, if I can help, let me know. Anyway, guys, you keep your head up out there. Wow, dude. People see cops and get scared. Anyway, as I said, eyes up, boys.